Namaskar, welcome Vinita ji, and welcome everybody. So this is our talk number 4 this week in the Shaivite org anniversary week. And let me quickly introduce Vinita ji, and then I will hand over the mic to her for her wonderful talk that's coming up. Vinita ji is a spiritual author. She just published her third book, Dance of Duality, based on a Kashmiri woman named Lalla and her mystical experiences. In addition, Vinita ji offers intuitive counseling. She is a certified life coach and past life regression therapist. She also helps people with Naadi, ancient palm leaf predictions and remedies readings. Vinita ji specializes in Vedic knowledge, spiritual guidance, and healing. In addition, she has knowledge about Ayurveda, homeopathy, supplements, pranayama, meditation, yoga, Jyotish, Vedic astrology, etc. She uses an integrative approach when helping others. Welcome, Vinita ji.
Thank
And
you.
we are going to hear you talk about your book and overall the spiritual experiences. So let me bring you to the center stage and remove all the sharing. But let me remind the guests, we will have a 50 minutes of talk, and then for Q&A, please raise your hands or post your questions in the Q&A block over here. There will be a couple of polls, so don't forget to respond to those polls as well. Let me stop sharing my screen, and I will bring Vinitaji's screen to the middle. And there you go. All right, it's all yours. Take it away.
Namah Shivaya, everyone. I'm very honored to be in this very scholarly community. Just at the offset, I just wanted to clarify that I am not a Kashmiri Pandit. I'm another sort of KP because I'm a Kanikubj Pandit from Uttar Pradesh. Kannauj is a town in Uttar Pradesh. So I'm not an authority in Kashmiri Shaivism by any means, but my passion for mystics has always been there. And so I studied Mirabai and for my second book, and I studied Lalleshwari for my third book. But in my third book, it is not a biography of Lalleshwari. It is actually a fictional tale of a Kashmiri woman in the 21st century. And she's a Kashmiri Pandit, and she has been named Lalla. So it is like a modern mystic and a contemporary version of Lalleshwari, almost as though you would see Lalleshwari if she was in the 21st century, what she would be. So what is this book about? Like I mentioned, it's about a Kashmiri woman whose name is Lalla and her spiritual experiences. And as Kashmiri Shaivism is also for householders, she exemplifies a mystical life which is woven into a very pragmatic, practical life, a worldly life. And she's also a modern mystic. Um, so I'll just give you a summary of the book. You know, the book actually starts before she is born on the planet, and she, as a soul in heavenly realms, chooses to be born at this time and play a certain role and have a purpose for life. Um, so she has chosen to become a Kashmiri woman, and she is born in Srinagar, and this is in the 1960s. And also another soul who wants to exemplify duality is born as a reverse, you know, to show the duality of light and darkness, knowledge and ignorance, and truth and falsehood. There is another soul that is born with her, and they are born, like I said, in Srinagar, and they spend their childhood in Srinagar. Um, and then it describes certain experiences that she even has as a child when she's very young, how she naturally goes into trance very easily, uh, and sees many things which most people do not see in the subtle realms. So as she grows up, their family moves to New Delhi. She goes to school in New Delhi, and her mystical experiences continue and become far more supernatural. So I will read one of the excerpts of when she's 13, what experience that she has. And she goes to an engineering school and college, and she becomes a computer scientist, gets a job, and gets married to a Kashmiri boy who is becoming a neurosurgeon in the Bay Area. So she gets married in typical Kashmiri style. And here I want to mention a friend of mine. Her name is Kusum Kaul Vyas, who really helped me to bring the authenticity of the Kashmiri traditions into the book and make sure that all of these things that I describe in the Kashmiri tradition are very authentic. So I wanted to give thanks to her. So she does get married in Delhi, and then they move to the Bay Area, and she gets very involved in her married life, and sort of her spiritual life is put on the back burner. And while she is in the Bay Area is when the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits happen. And she does lose some family members, so does her husband Sid, and they go to Delhi to be with their family. But that is like a wake-up call for her. It really makes her question life. What is the purpose of life? And seeing that suffering really jolts her back into the spiritual realm. And that is when she starts her first formal education on spiritual texts, many spiritual texts that she starts learning, and also studies Islam, and goes back into the spiritual line. Even though she's married, she continues her spiritual journey and chooses not to work as a computer scientist, but she then starts learning a lot of spiritual techniques, and starts, also practicing them in her life. And from there, as she evolves, she not only has these experiences, but now because she's had this knowledge, she knows the theory now, she can now understand what her experiences are. Because most of her experiences so far have been very spontaneous, and she didn't really have that understanding of what is she experiencing. But as she gains this knowledge, which is of course in Kashmiri Shaivism, but also in Advait and other things, she integrates both knowledge and experience into her life. And and as you will read in the book, you will see that she does attain the highest, which is liberation. And what happens, because there is certain milestones that happen. I've also described COVID, and there is there is something that happens to her husband, and I won't say what happens, but there is a major shift in her life when her husband gets COVID, and does he survive or not survive? But then her life carries on from there. And so, it describes a lot of modern spiritual terms in the book. These are very contemporary, like I said, in this arc. It's like she's a contemporary. So all the experiences that are described in the book are very relatable and very contemporary. So so the terminology that I have used is not, some places I have used traditional terminology like anugraha. There's another excerpt that I will read to you where she actually experienced anugraha. But the terminology, especially in the second half of the book, is very modern, so that my children and my children's children can actually relate with her story. And therefore I connect the traditional with the modern, so that it is a bridge. This book becomes a bridge where I can keep the depth, I can keep the authenticity and the essence of our tradition, but I can also have it relatable for the younger generation. So that is really the purpose of why I wrote this book, that it will also inspire people who are younger to get inspiration from reading this book and also make it realistic, that it is not something that is not attainable, but these mystical states are very much attainable even today. So that it is not something that we always speak of in the past, that, Lalleshwari is in the past, Abhinav Gupta was in the past, or Lakshman Ji was in the past, but that we can also revive this tradition and keep it alive. And for any tradition to survive, it has to evolve. So this is my small contribution in that regard. So I would like to now read a couple of excerpts from this book. So the first one that I will read is from the third chapter, and this is where she has an experience when she's only 13, and this is an experience of samadhi that she has when she's only 13. Okay, so this is so let me begin. This is from the chapter named The World That Came to Me. One night, when I was 13, I was on the terrace roof of our house. I was pensive and looked out into the stars. I wondered if there was a state of mind without thoughts. My mind focused on one star without effort, and I observed my thoughts till the last thought of I, which too disappeared. Then my mind seemed to go into a black hole. I ceased to see anything. All sound pulled into my ears, and I went into a void. I don't quite know how long I had blacked out. When Gonaded came looking for me and held my arm, I came back to consciousness. Though she said I had been gone for many hours, I felt I had only blinked. Everyone was worried where I was. My mind was still blank, though I was very alert and aware. The moon was behind us as we walked towards the stairs to go down, and suddenly we noticed a bright light went around my shadow and my shadow disappeared. I was neither astounded nor scared, but Gonaded screeched in shock and then looked at me with a strange face. I was very peaceful. I smiled and said to her, "It's okay, I'm fine." We stood there for a minute observing, and then my shadow came back slowly. She then held my hand and rushed down the stairs with me while I pleaded with her not to tell my parents. I went to my parents' bedroom while she covered her mouth with her sari and went into the kitchen. My parents were a bit annoyed and asked me where I had been. So I said, "On the roof. I just lost track of time." I looked at the clock on the wall. The time was 11:11 p.m. We negotiated that I need to let someone know where I am before disappearing, and then I headed to bed. That night, I sat up and leaned back in bed because my energy was so high I couldn't sleep. My mind was still and wasn't running with thoughts like it usually did. Even though my eyes were open, I was in meditation. I felt a gentle, loving presence and smelled the fragrance of flowers. And though I couldn't see a physical form, I could see subtle forms above me of Jesus and another master, whom I later found out was Sri Guru Babaji, aka Mahavatar Babaji. They were there to be with me that night, or perhaps it was them who bestowed that light onto me with their grace and blessings. From then on, every night, I used to sit up in bed and meditate on my own without instruction or effort. So that is when she is 13, where she has a spontaneous experience of, going into samadhi. So now I will read another excerpt, which is from chapter 9, and it is the experience of Anugraha, which is traditionally known as Anugraha, but of course, for her, it is again something spontaneous. So this is chapter 9, aligning with my purpose. I felt I had no guidance, no guru, so I went to the local Sai Baba temple seeking help. Sitting in front of Baba, his smiling face looking at me with compassion, I asked him like a little girl, Baba, I need a guru. I have no one for guidance. What is all this I am experiencing, and where am I to go? Tears rolled down my cheeks as my heart melted, and I surrendered completely to him. I closed my eyes and sat quietly. I heard Baba's precept: withdraw from without to within. In the seed of your heart lies a guru. A faint message hard to transcribe into words. Then, from my mind's eye, I saw a crystalline light emerging from Baba and enveloping me. It felt like a benevolent blessing of grace. That beautiful, blissful, blinding light filled my entire being from head to toe. Then it was as though my whole body dissolved into it, becoming just light. I sat for a while absorbed in this divine blessing of grace, anugraha as it's called. As I opened my eyes, I felt these words emerge from my mind. Param Shiva is my consciousness, is everyone's consciousness. Everything is different densities and forms of consciousness. I looked around the temple hall and I could see, and all I could see was forms of that supreme being pervading everything, like one giant ocean of consciousness. I felt different. My body felt different, something I hadn't felt for a long time, similar to the experience I had as a teenager when I had gone into samadhi. I felt so peaceful. My mind was silent. I bowed to Baba in gratitude and got up. As I walked from the main hall to the Dwarka Mai room, passing several people, I was in a different state, and a spontaneous poem rose from my heart. In this crystalline palace, I am a guest, from whose windows I see others walking asleep. The same liquid light becomes me, becomes crystal, becomes all bodies I see. When I close my eyes, all ends in a void. When I open them, there's an unending dream. You are the self within myself, a marriage as this is seen. From one form to another we travel, yet separate we have been. You remembered our union, and I forgot somewhere in between. For the love of you, I surrender and sacrifice my separate being. Returning to myself, I realize I forgot, I only remembered, and it is I alone that will play this play again unendingly. So that is the two excerpts I wanted to read to you. Uh, and just a few words, it's basically, I thought that if Lal Ded had chosen to be born today, what would she be like? What kind of life would she choose? And this is sort of my creation of a mystic woman of our contemporary in the 21st century. Also, as you read the book, there are certain subtle meanings beyond the storyline. So you'll have to read between the words to understand the deeper meanings that I'm trying to convey through the book. So here again, the story is that first she has the experience, then she gets the theory, and then the theory explains her experience and gives her this understanding. So that is really the gist of the book. And lastly, just a little bit about me. So this is my third book. My first book was Eternal Way to Bliss. My second, The Eternal Way to Bliss, was actually based on the Gita. So it has the gist of the Gita. So it was all about knowledge. The second one, Merging with the Beloved, was on bhakti. And some of them are my own poems that I've written. I've written about Sri Krishna and, of course, Mirabai in that. Uh, Now, of course, this was my third book, Dance of Duality. And this, my fourth book is going to be called Return of the Rishis, which is work in progress that I've just started writing. This is actually based on research that I'm doing on the Nadis. Um, so I wanted to just tell you a little bit about this work because I know Kashmiris do not know about the Nadis. The the Nadis are ancient palm leaves that were written in the Dwapar Yuga by the rishis, by the Sapta rishis. And these palm leaves have been copied over time for over a few hundred years. They were copied, and they're in various parts of India, but most of them actually now remain only in South India. But they have traveled to other parts of India. So I found my Nadi palm leaf because there are individual predictions for people. And in May of this year, I actually found my Nadi palm leaf. So I'd gone to a reader who has these ancient bundles. And it stated my name, it stated my parents' name, my date of birth, and many other specific details. Um, and then it gave me, predictions for my life. And I found it so fascinating. I can talk about it in another talk, but I just wanted to give you a gist of this magical journey that I have now started with this Nadi and started writing on this book called Return of the Rishis. Um, and in my personal life, yes, I do spiritual counseling. I'm also a healer, an author, and my passion is in helping people. So I do whatever it takes, different approaches, whether it's Ayurveda, homeopathy, yoga, meditation, and so on to help people. I have been a yoga and meditation teacher, and I still do that sometimes. I still teach meditation and pranayams. Um, and so that's a little bit about me. I know that we have ended very early for my talk, but honestly, I would prefer more of an interactive session so it's not a monologue. Um, and Rishik, if it's okay, can we have some questions?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to hijack the entire time. So let's see if there are audience questions first. Guys, please feel free to raise your hands or post a question in Q&A, and we can bring you to the presenter mode. Or maybe we can ask one question to break the ice that I was writing. Sonaliji, do you want to publish that question? Let's see how it
Yeah,
shows up.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, can I publish? Hmm.
It's probably not popping up. Maybe
It's not
because.
coming up for some
So
reason.
let me read it out. So Vinita ji, my question is: as a non-Kashmiri scholar or author researching Lalleshwari and Kashmir Shaivism,
Mhm.
what do you think were the challenges in you encountered in understanding the cultural references?
Um, Actually, I did not have too many challenges in understanding the culture or the tradition. Um, I only feel that compared to Advait Vedanta and some of these other traditions, on non-duality, Kashmir Shaivism, it was more reserved and less accessible. It seemed as though only qualified students who go searching for it will find it. But because I've taken many sessions, on Shiva Sutra many years ago. I was exposed to Kashmiri Shaivism through, certain people, certain teachers on sessions that I'd gone on Shiva Sutras and of course Vigyan Bhairav. But again, I feel it is not widely, you know, taught around the world is my feeling,
Yeah.
and
Also,
I don't
as
know why.
actually, this was a question I asked Mrinalji this morning, and his
Mhm.
explanation was that it was mostly geographical location in which Kashmir was, and the information flowing out was not necessarily that easy, and only people who really sort of wanted to, or were
Mhm.
determined to take that information out, or people from outside who wanted to come in, only those people would actually get access to it. Although it makes me wonder, why has it taken over 100 years ever since uh, the
Mhm.
the, the publications industry kind of boomed? Why has it taken so long
Mhm.
for people like us, common people like me, to get access to it? Even as a Kashmiri myself, I only came to know about the existence of this whole philosophy about a year and a half ago. And that's
Mm.
what terminology thinks. But we didn't go too much into the history of it. So thank you
Right.
for asking that question. We have another interesting question from Mr. Vijay Dhar. He says, given your background in Bhakti and Lalleshwari, do you believe Lalla was the beginning of the Bhakti movement, or was she just a sannyasin?
I don't think she was the beginning of the Bhakti movement. Of course, just to give a background, the Bhakti movement is traditionally known in India to be from about 1500 to 1600, with a lot of Bhakti saints that appeared in India, which is the time frame of, Mirabai. But Lalleshwari, of course, is much earlier. There were other Bhakti saints, even in Maharashtra and other places of India. um, I don't know if she was the first, but I believe that this would have started with Kali Yuga. As has been said in the Purans, that in Kali Yuga, bhakti is the easiest way to find liberation. So a lot of our saints have actually not been documented. Had it not been for Nand Rishi, maybe even Laleshwari would go into history without being known. So I don't know the answer to that question, but she's definitely one of the older ones that we know about.
Yeah, mid 14th century is when I think the Bhakti movement started, and Kabir Das, Sant Kabir Das was at the beginning of that time frame.
Yeah.
This has been a question that we have been exploring too. Like, there is some overlap, maybe towards the last few years of Lalleshwari and Kabir Das, starting his journey. There was maybe some overlap, but we haven't been able to establish a clear link, because
Hmm.
Lalawak, even though it does not have like a characteristic sort of meter that we see in Kabir Das's, Dohe, but the messaging has a lot of overlap. And this is my personal belief, and probably Vijayji knows about it already, that there has been some messaging overlap between Laleshwari and Kabir Das. But an interesting question, and thank you for sharing your perspective. Let's see if anybody wants to join on the mic and ask a question. Do we have anybody who wants to ask your question by
Yeah,
voice?
I just wanted to add one thing, Rishi. So actually, Kabir Das, as far as I know, he was also a contemporary for Mirabai, because I know that in my research, when I'd found out Mirabai had actually gone to Kashi and met Kabir.
Oh, wow.
So,
Incredible. So was it like towards the end of Kabir Das's time, and Mirabai was coming up at that time, or how much of an overlap do you think there was?
yes. So, yeah, I mean, he was perhaps much older. Kabir Das, documented no, or undocumented, is passed or left his body at when the 1518 AD, and Mirabai was born in 1498 AD,
Okay.
and she disappeared in 1550.
Okay.
So there was some overlap with him. Yes.
Awesome. That's an interesting insight. Let's see. Are there any questions, or I can use the time to ask another one of mine? Okay, we'll wait. Maybe this will keep breaking the ice a little more. So, do you feel, Vinita ji, there are any overlaps between your personal
Mhm.
experiences and the experience of the samadhi that you read the excerpt? Your protagonist experienced samadhi at the age of 13. Does this idea, I know it's fiction, does it have any inspiration from your personal experiences with spirituality?
Yes, it does, but I have not made that public. But a lot of these experiences have been borrowed from my own personal life. Yes.
And did
So
you?
it is possible to it is possible to attain samadhi at 13. So it's not fiction, it's not non-attainable, it is quite possible.
Of course. So do you feel, because there is this aspect of finding a guru that's considered to be
Mhm.
a very important step in, practicing. You can learn the theory, you can memorize it, you can maybe even understand it, but you can't convert that theory into practice without a guru. That's what we have learned so far from, all the literature, or listening to all the great people. So at an age
Mhm.
of 13, are you looking for a guru already? Are there certain people who are looking for a guru, or they are just spontaneously, or which is what we call, Shambho Pai in Kashmiri Shaivism?
Yes.
Is that what we are talking about?
Yes, and that was Lalleshwari. Well, I mean, she barely got any instruction. Lalleshwari, the mystic, she barely got, I mean, it was literally one sentence that he spoke, and it's very similar to the story. Um, so, yes, I'm sure that there are many people who have mystical experiences at a young age, and they just go by because they keep them private. A lot of people don't make these experiences public, and they're privately shared, whether it's with parents. But I feel that even in the old days, it was still easier to find an authentic guru. I think now that one on one instruction from a guru is almost non existent. And that is really a shame. That guru disciple relationship is extremely important. You see, because what happens is when you go to a group class, you go and take these courses, or you go into this sort of herd, it is not personalized, and that really does not help an aspirant who's a sincere aspirant. And it doesn't help because they have so many questions, and those questions often don't get answered. They can find teachers or certain guides, but they're not evolved enough to guide them either. So this is a big problem in our times, in finding a guru who can give you one-on-one instruction. Um, One of the things that I'm trying to do in a modern way, of course, I'm not a guru, but one of the things that I'm trying to do is trying to do that mentorship, so that it's like somebody who's in 10th class can mentor somebody who's in 7th class, so that whatever I can do to help them in steering their way, because a lot of people that I know in my life are spiritual and they have experiences and they are gifted. I mean, gifted in the sense they have some spiritual gifts. So I think that is a very important point, is because every aspirant is a different flavor. They're at a different place. Some have this knowledge, some don't have this knowledge, some people have this nature, some people have a different nature. And the guru really meets the student at where they are and lifts them from there. So that individualized instruction by an enlightened master, or even any master, one to one, is in dire need in our times. And that's, I don't think that I know of anybody who still gives one-on-one instruction.
Right. So I'm going to pick a few things, facts from the last few calls, and you've been in those calls yourself. So maybe it'll be easy for you to connect. When we were listening to Advait Vadni ji on the first talk, she mentioned that Lalleshwari had Sidhu Boy as her guru, and it seems like the instruction she received from him was actually quite extensive. And looks like Vijayji has raised his hand, so I'm going to add him. And as soon as I finish, I will hand it over to him to make his comment or ask a question. So we were saying Lalleshwari had the advantage of Sid Boy being her guru,
Mhm.
and you also talked about finding a master who may not, like a mentor relationship, where if you're a fifth grader and you have a seventh grader, a seventh grader can definitely share a few things with the fifth grader, which we, in the modern professional world, we agree that is a you know a, a fairly reasonable way to get mentored or guided. This morning, Mrinalji was saying that, it doesn't matter if it is your guru, the person you want as your guru is actually an elevated soul. It could be somebody who's walking on the street and he gives you a nugget, of wisdom, and you may follow that, and that will be equivalent of finding a guru. So my question for you is, like, do you think there is value in pursuing a guru, or do we just wait for guru to find us? How do you, in this world, or in the times that we live in, do you feel that we can actually find a guru, or we just hope to be lucky and somehow once we are on Shakti path, which I think everybody who has been attending these calls is already on Shakti path, because they are at least curious about what they are doing, what their spiritual needs are. But do we just wait for that anugrah to happen spontaneously, and maybe a guru will show up, and maybe we'll be lucky, or maybe we will not? What do you think about that?
I think that the guru finds the student. Um, so there is various combinations, but I feel if you take a mystical route in your life, and if you have that surrender and you surrender to the Supreme, to Shiva, if you are in complete surrender to Shiva, and if you have faith, I am 100% sure that Shivji will send the right person to you at the right time. And often what happens is, you need somebody from till graduation, till high school graduation. So you might have one teacher, and that teacher is not adequate for an undergrad study. You might get another guru who takes you till the undergrad study, and you might have another guru who is an enlightened guru who takes you to the PhD. So you can have multiple gurus, you can have one guru. You may not need a physical guru. Maybe Shiva comes to you and gives you instructions within you. So there are many combinations and permutations. But in my life, I have faith that whatever I need, and if I am a true seeker, and if I am in surrender, if I have complete faith, that the Supreme will send the right person to me. That's what I feel.
Awesome. That's very beautiful. Let's go to Vijayji. Vijayji, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Namaste, Vinita ji. Yeah, my question, because you talked about, you kind of worked on the contemporary kind of world, and you brought Lalla to our times. What is the relevance of this Kashmiri Shaivism philosophy to the current times? I mean, I have been kind of the belief that, this is a world where there's multiple crises facing humanities, and, future looks, with all this technology that's coming and stuff, which way this technology is going to take us and all. So do you think there is a relevance for Kashmiri Shaivism philosophy, the practices, the upayas and all that stuff in the current world to refine the humanity? Or do you think that this is just an evolution that's going to happen? Destruction, creation, sustenance is going to keep on happening, and we need to kind of accept that as the way, and or do you think that we are actually going through a steady evolution, and we need this kind of philosophy and this kind of practices to guide us in that direction towards the evolution?
Yeah, I think Kashmir Shaivism, or any true tradition, any true wisdom tradition, will always be eternal, and it will always remain relevant. But it is also up to the adherents and the practitioners to make it contemporary. A lot of times I feel that we are the last generation, and it is our responsibility to make it relatable for our children. Because, whether it is the script, or whether it's the language, or whether it is the terminology, the gap should not be there. So when I speak to my children, and they hear so much from me and they love it, because I translate ancient tradition for them, who are Indian Americans, and I translate it because, see, once you truly understand the wisdom, when you truly understand knowledge, you will be able to put it in very simple terms and relatable terms, not just to your children, but to yourself, and put it in practice, because you have to really get it. And getting it is not theoretical knowledge, it is experiential. And once it is integrated in you, once it's a living experience, then it is very relevant because you integrated it into your life. And Kashmiri Shaivism is for married, family life as well. It is not a monastic order. So this is what Lalleshwari in this book does, what Lalla does. She is married, she's very regular. I mean, she talks to people in a normal way. She's not wandering in the forests. So it is very relevant because we need to deepen our roots, especially in the times of challenges, of wars, of disease, of lot of things that are happening in our families, whether it's mental health or various relationship problems. We need to take a modern approach, but we need to have it our roots deep into the tradition, because a lot of times the new age spirituality that has come in is not grounded. It doesn't have a framework, but luckily we have this tradition where we have a very solid foundation, and from that we can put it into practice into modern spiritual terms, and put it into practice whether we are at work and how to deal with people. Now, of course, in our personal lives, all the upayas are very practical. I mean, all the three paths, Shambhopaya, Shaktopaya, all of these Anupaya, they are all being done actually, but they're being done in various forms. We have to recognize, okay, this is Shambhopaya, okay, this is Shaktopaya, and so on. But they're being done by so many people who are not even into Kashmiri Shaivism. But we need to, like I said, we have the duty to translate this tradition and keep it alive and keep evolving it. I hope that answered your question.
Beautiful explanation. Vijayji, do you have a follow-up on that? Okay.
No,
Probably.
I got it. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Sure.
Are there any more questions? You're welcome to ask. We have plenty of time. We have about 20 more minutes to go.
Yeah, or if you like, I can tell you a little bit more about, what her life has been, because it's very interesting. If you read this book, Lalleshwari actually lives in the Bay Area, and uh, you know, she has friends who are in the tech industry. Like you said, is it something that we can relate to? Because she came from a prestigious university like IIT in India, her friends are now having IPOs and they're very successful. Her husband is a neurosurgeon in Stanford. So you will see, they still have a social life. There is a chapter here which I have described her experiences with a master called Shriyam. So right after this chapter that I read to you, uh, where she asks, she goes to the local Bay Area Baba Mandir and she says, I don't have a guru. I would like to uh, find a guru who can guide me. In the very next chapter, actually, she finds a guru, and his name is Shriyam. He is a real master today. You can look him up. He's of the Kriya Yoga tradition, and it describes what happens because there it describes Shaktipat, where when she is initiated, she actually feels the energy hitting her third eye. So all of these things that are written in the Kashmiri Shaivism tradition, she actually experiences in her life. So when she has this initiation, which is true initiation through Shaktipat, she has, it again describes certain mystical experiences that she has with this guru, Shriyam. Um, so that is a very nice chapter, and a lot of the people who follow Shriyam love that chapter, which I have written. It's a 10th chapter of the book. Again, it progresses into a future that has not come yet. That is another very interesting part of the book, because I actually describe the war, the Iran-Iraq war. I describe the Russia-Ukraine war, and then a war that is coming in the future. Um, Unfortunately, there are wars that escalate. There are many other things that happen, But on a parallel level, while all these wars are going on, Lalla here and certain other spiritual people, they are actually diverging from that world and, ascending, towards liberation. Describes this separation almost, where she is ascending on a liberation path, while the rest of the world is almost going into self-destruct, but she is going into this much more evolutionary path and ascending towards liberation. So yeah, it is very different, because I have written about the future as well, which is yet to come.
So we don't have a book club, unfortunately, yet in Shaivite, but hopefully, one day we'll have a book
Mm.
club too, and we would probably want to read this book together. And I'm fascinated by the tales you have been sharing with us. I think Vijayji is back with another question. So Vijayji, go ahead.
Actually, you can Shaivite.org can acquire the book club that we already have. Amrita already runs on Friday evenings, so you can it's a acquisition you can kind of do. so anyway, that would be living this whole tradition from modern life. Anyway, my point was, because I did not want to ask more questions at the expense of others, but if there are others who want to talk, please give them the priority, because I don't know hog the time.
Sure.
But if you have a few minutes, I wanted to kind of share my experience with Vinita ji about this guy who invented microprocessors in Intel back in '60s, and now he's become a spiritual guy, and he started a lot of companies, and he did he's a billionaire now, but he wanted to put consciousness into computers, and so he had to study consciousness. He couldn't study that in the West, so the only place he could do that was in the East. So the question I have was that it's not only relevance from the point of view of getting that spiritual experience and all, but also from the point of view of science and technology that is going on today. They are finding a lot of things which are relatable and explainable by the work that was done 1,000 years ago or more. And so do you see that as a vehicle for making it more relevant for the youngsters? That I've been kind of struck by that, and I've been pushing in that direction, but I don't know how successful it will be. But what are your views about the fact that even science and technology nowadays, Nobel Prizes that happened in the last few years are kind of looking into this entanglement and all these the concepts, and the language is suddenly becoming such an important thing in AI. And there are theories, there are models for language in our philosophy. So what do you see? What do you think about that being a vehicle for engaging the youth in this?
I think definitely we have to have scientific spirituality in order for the younger generation to relate to this. Actually, I am starting a training in quantum consciousness. There's 5 weekends that I will be taking this training with a very famous uh, person, and he was actually the chairman of Institute on Scientific Spirituality. I don't want to go into it, but it's along the lines of past life regression, but it's about in between lives. But he does consciousness research, and this quantum science, quantum mechanics, that is something which is very close to Advait or non-duality or Kashmiri Shaivism. So I think as uh, science reaches towards consciousness, towards spirituality, there would be a bridge where we can understand things which are not understandable, especially in terms of, siddhis, and how siddhis are beyond time and space. For example, there are Kashmiri masters who could be present in two places at the same time. It's a siddhi, and it's called bilocation. In contemporary spirituality, it's called, people who can bilocate. And how do you explain that in science? How is that possible that you can manifest a body in two places? So, on the levels of quantum mechanics, yes, it may be explainable. So, some of these siddhis where people say, oh, it's just a myth, or this cannot happen, or unless I see it to believe it kind of thing, if science can explain these things, then it will make further moves, in our contemporary scientific society. So that is definitely something that can be done. And there are many other people who don't need a scientific explanation. They're quite happy with just having the mystical experience and the magical things that happen once you attain certain spiritual levels. And even Swami Lakshmanju, he had so many spiritual experiences, but nobody bothered to explain them scientifically. But definitely that is what a lot of people are doing, especially Western researchers. As a lot of Western people are becoming more spiritual and going deeper into spirituality, they're also combining it with science. So that is one of my passions also, is quantum physics and consciousness.
Awesome. Actually, this is one of the very polarizing topics, even whether you do it publicly or privately. Some of the scholars that I have had the privilege to talk to are probably not that thrilled about using scientific approach or Western scientific approach to explain the philosophy of Kashmir Shaivism, whereas there are others who feel that
Mhm.
this is a welcome move because this will bring contemporary thinking closer to the traditional spiritual thinking. I do want to take this opportunity to remind everybody there are two more talks this week, and one of them is from another scholar who's researching the past of Kashmiri Pandits, and is that's the talk tomorrow. But I also want to call out, because we were talking about quantum physics and consciousness. On Friday evening, we are going to have a talk from Dr. Subhash Kak, who is a physicist,
Mhm.
and he doesn't need any introduction, but he's going to talk exactly about that topic. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to bring. And I hope all of you can join and sort of join the conversation, join the talk, and this is what I think Shaivite is probably going to serve as a bridge between the traditionalists and the more modernist approach of spirituality. And I know Vijayji has been a collaborator, quiet collaborator with me for almost a year and a half now. He's been kind of guiding me on a lot of ideas, and he runs his own course on under the KOA platform, the Kashmiri Overseas
Mhm.
Association. So, Vinita ji, I can't tell you how happy I am to hear that you are also exploring this path. As you know, on the WhatsApp community, we do have Quantum Shaivism group as well, which is meant to kind of
Right.
explore this more deeply. So I don't know if you're on that, but you're welcome to join and maybe share some of your observations there.
Sure, sure, will do.
Uh,
Yes.
let's do a last call on questions, comments. Anybody wants to share any more observations, or we can take our 6 minutes back. Akshayji has raised his hand. Okay, let's bring him in. Akshayji, go ahead.
I don't know if this question will make sense, but I have this feeling that I want to ask about, or rather a doubt. Why is the like imagery or personification of Lalla and Lalleshwari also always more feminine? How would we draw parallels to it in terms of for a man instance, for example? How would that be relatable to the other gender?
Yeah, so in the Bhakti movement, if you read about the Bhakti movement, it was not just women. Uh, for me, of course, I related to Lalleshwari as with other many mystic women, and I study other mystic women. Anandamayi Ma, for example, who is in the 20th century, she's another really amazing person. But there are so many mystics. You can choose whoever you relate to. I don't think in the end gender really matters because the mystics rise far above gender. I mean, if you go into non-duality, there is no gender there. And the knowledge that they give, all these mystics, the knowledge that they give is more important. So the message is more important than the messenger. And I've never been conscious of whether it's male or female. I mean, I love Kabir, for example. Um, and there's others, there's Tulsidas, there's Guru Nanak, and so many others. So, but like I said, if you want to relate to some other mystic, you can do that. If you feel like a male mystic might be more relatable for you, that's totally fine. But I would rather see beyond the gender and look at the feeling, the feelings, the experience, the message, and relate to that.
That's very insightful. Akshayji, do you have a follow-up on that?
No, I'm clear on what I actually wanted to hear. It's no more about. Yeah.
Excellent. And we have another comment from Vijayji. I think it pertains to my previous comment. Vijayji says, no issue with the polarization. Shiva manifests in all forms. Differences are part of the design. It's a field of all possibilities. I agree with that. All right. So we
Yeah.
are at the end of this. Vinita ji, is there another closing remark you would like to make?
I would just like to appeal to the Kashmiri Shaivism community to do this work of propagating this tradition to their children and into the world, because I still feel it's still a very closed society. I know some Kashmiris, and they're very shy about themselves and what they practice and even their experiences, because I know them one on one. They do share it. But I would love for Kashmiris to actually write about their parents, grandparents, or husbands, great grandfather, because I've heard so many mystical stories. It's unbelievable. Why are these stories not documented? I was talking to Kusum Kaul Vyas, and I said, "Can you please document this? Stories about her grandmother." And she's actually from Brij Bihara. Uh, Brij Bihara is famous for Lalleshwari. So please, I mean, I'm not Kashmiri, so I don't have these stories. But please do document these stories from your ancestors, and everybody would love to hear them.
What a wonderful note to conclude this session on. I totally agree with you, Vinita ji. We are trying to document as much as we can through this platform also. And we are requesting people to kind of join and share their experiences, their stories. And I think there is already a degree of realization. People who are younger than me have, I think, a stronger urge to kind of document and collect these stories. But what a wonderful message to share. And I would definitely share this with everybody that I come across. And these talks are going to be published on YouTube as well. So I hope people watch and like hear this, sentiment that you have shared. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to encourage more people to share their stories. With that thought, we are exactly at the top of the hour, so it's time for us to conclude. I want to thank you again for a very precious talk today. Thank you for the work you're doing through your books and through your research and through your engagement with the Kashmiri community, and also your contributions overall in the field of spirituality. And we are blessed to have you as one of our speakers and as well as one of our community members. And I wanted to thank all the guests who were able to join and stayed through the entire session. Namaskar.